Hello, everybody. You have tuned in to Eric Jose on Making a Murderer on YouTube. I cover virtually any aspect of making a murderer. I go over the evidence, the documents, the photos. So if you like, stay tuned, and in the future I'll have many more videos besides the one you're about to see. Hello, folks. We're back here today to talk a little bit more about Zellner's request for Judge Sukowitz to vacate her order denying Stephen his evidentiary hearing based on this new evidence she's trying to present. Before, in my other video, you guys may have noticed I was pretty thorough and comprehensive on it, but I did kind of just sidestep the Scott Taddick, Bobby Dassey, and the content on the Dassey computer. I still needed to look at it and kind of process it and look at it and think about it some more, before I could really speak about it personally. So that's what today is. I'm going to go ahead and give my thoughts on what I think that stuff kind of means. I gotta say that the content that they found there it does give cause for concern, and I'm going to go ahead and get into that probably in a little bit. The thing that I also want to say here is, number one, for all the people that are getting upset about Scott Taddick being named as a suspect, well, the guilters and all of them, they were all getting very upset about the fact that Ryan Hillegas was named as a suspect. They didn't think it was fair. Well, anybody who knows on my channel knows how much I disagree with that. I think Ryan Hillegas is fishy as hell, and the fact that he finally is getting called out and he may have to end up explaining some things is fine with me. But the point is that they were complaining it was not fair or whatever, crying foul or whatever. But it's what do you think Zellner was going to do? What did you think Zellner was going to do? If she could offer other suspects that meet the high threshold of Denny, she's going to do it, because that creates more doubt in terms of Stephen's conviction. She's now uncovered this content that was on the Dassey computer. She has done a recreation of what the three cars, Bobby's, Scott's, and Teresa's cars, would have been doing that day, and how they would have all pretty much converged at the same point on Cuss Road at the same time. So there's some things that she's got going on here, but mainly what the content on the Dassey computer creates concern, and also it creates, somebody had an interest in Teresa and some rather bizarre subject matter. I'll leave it at that for now. I'll get into this more in a minute. The thing I will also point out, even with Ryan Hillegas, anybody that Zellner names in these motions, people, they're all innocent until proven guilty, and I hope everybody understands that. Because if you are gonna rage and get mad about the fact that Stephen wasn't really given the chance, he was pretty much deemed guilty from day one, from the first second, and he wasn't really given a fair trial, then you can't go trying to do that same thing to Ryan or Scott or Bobby or anybody else. You have to be fair, and you have to let the wheels of justice do what they have to do. That's all I gotta say about that. Everybody is innocent until proven guilty, even if you don't like them. So, and I say that because so many people do dislike Ryan Hillegas, but the fact of the matter is he is still innocent until proven guilty, and so is Scott. So we're gonna go ahead today, move in here to back to that to Zellner's request, and we're gonna go ahead and look into the parts where she begins to talk about Scott and Bobby and the content on the Dassey computer. New evidence establishes that Bobby Dassey and Scott Taddick were at the same location as Miss Halbach when she received her last telephone call. Mr. Avery has conducted an experiment using an expert videographer to establish the timeline of Miss Halbach's arrival and departure from the Avery Salvage Yard on October 31st of 2005. Two vehicles were used of the same year, make, and model as Miss Halbach's and Bobby's vehicles. The footage of this experiment is attached, incorporated herein as Exhibit J. As demonstrated by the experiment, it took Miss Halbach no more than 2 minutes and 30 seconds from the time she entered the Avery salvage property to complete the photo shoot and get back to her vehicle and begin to drive away from the van's location. Miss Halbach arrived at the Avery property at 2:34 p.m. After completing her photograph of the van and receiving payment from Mr. Avery. She began driving to the exit at 2:36 minutes and 30 seconds. Mr. Avery returned to his trailer. Miss Halbach reached the exit at Highway 147 at 2:37 minutes and 32 seconds. Bobby left his residence 30 seconds behind Miss Halbach at 2:37. Mr. Avery exited his trailer after 50 seconds at 2:37 and 20 seconds and proceeded to walk towards his driveway, reaching the middle of it at 2:37:32. At that point in time, 2:37:32, he saw Teresa turn left onto Highway 147, and then he looked to his right and observed that Bobby's vehicle was gone. Bobby's vehicle was not visible on the south end of Avery Road from the middle of Mr. Avery's driveway. In the experiment, Miss Halbach was approaching the intersection of Highway 147 and County Road Q when Bobby caught up with her. At 2:41 p.m., Miss Halbach forwarded a call from her cell phone indicating she was preoccupied or distracted by another matter. Her cell phone was deactivated after this point in time, leading to the reasonable inference that she was assaulted and murdered at approximately 2:45 p.m. Further evidentiary support for Miss Halbach's being assaulted and murdered at the cul-de-sac on Cuss Road is that the scent and the cadaver dogs detected a suspected burial site immediately south of Cuss Road cul-de-sac. All right, so Casey's making the case there that basically by, establishing, or, well, not establishing, but by evaluating the timeline of things and accepting Scott's assertion that he was at Highway 145 and County Q Road at 2:41, and judging by the time Teresa should have left, and by the time she was forwarding her phone, a phone call to forwarding it, because obviously she was too preoccupied to answer it, right at that time. So she's making the case that Scott and Bobby and Teresa were all at that same point right there by Cuss Road. And the thing about Cuss Road is the cadaver dogs were hitting there. Possible burial site. That's also right there where you can get into the quarry or to the salvage yard. And we all know that a human hip bone was found on top of the quarry pile, which to my mind suggests that that's the actual place that Teresa was originally burned, because Leslie Eisenberg herself, although saying it wasn't one of Teresa's bones, inexplicably, claimed that it had the same exact calcination as Teresa's bones, as her cremains. How do two bones that don't belong together end up with the same exact degree of calcination? So that makes that question weird. And then when you also think about it, another reason why KZ's got to be going after this, and creating the doubt for Stephen's conviction this way is also, when you think about it, one of Barb's burn barrels was essentially used to transport those bones. That is the most likely scenario. How else did the bones get in there? Don't even try to tell me that animals drug bones into the burn barrel. No animals did that. They might have drug bones from the burn pit to maybe the quarry, possibly. But there's no way that an animal was dragging bones from Stephen's burn pit into a burn barrel. So that burn barrel getting used is also another issue here with the assertions that KZ is making. So, because she also probably knows that it would make it a lot easier to explain how it wouldn't require ninja skills to get like Stephen's blood out of his sink, to know when Stephen was coming or going, and when it would be able to get, somebody might be able to get into his trailer, those sort of things, who would have access to the salvage yard and know basically a lot of the comings and goings of it. So that's another kind of thing with this new assertion of Scott and Bobby being suspects, is that it puts them in a place where a lot of the planting and all those kinds of questions can kind of get more easily answered. And I'm sure she's thought of that when she made this assertion. Based upon the timeline constructed by the above described experiment, prior admissions, and the affidavit of Brian Dassey, it is reasonable to conclude that Bobby Dassey, Scott Taddick, and Teresa Halbach were all in the same location at the time of her last known activity. Forwarding a cell phone call prior to her death, this evidence would have allowed Mr. Avery to reach the evidentiary threshold of establishing opportunity to commit the murder. State versus Denny. And I cannot help but wonder how Dean and Jerry were missing this. Not only that, but the evidence to elevate Ryan to the threshold, the Denny threshold. I am seriously asking myself how Dean and Jerry missed these things. Okay, so that was KZ establishing opportunity for Bobby and Scott. Now we're going to move into the documents that discuss basically what was found on the Dassey computer. Now, these things that were found there are pretty fairly disturbing. And I will say this, that if any one or two of them probably were found, it might not have been quite such a damning, or it might not have looked so bad. But the fact that you got this trifecta of searching for pictures of Teresa, searching for violent pornographic material involving young women, that it's gonna, that the document says actually resemble Teresa as well, and then pictures of dead bodies of girls and a decapitated head, and just some kind of disturbing imagery. Now, trust me, I understand that as a young boy, having an interest in that gruesome type of stuff, like just bodies being mutilated and that sort of thing. I mean, hey, there were videos that the neighborhood boys and we would all like check out too. We'd go down to the video store and rent, what was one of them called, I think, Faces of Death. That is not so crazy. I knew plenty of people that watched that video that didn't go on to murder people. The thing is when you got that type of stuff coupled with the fact that they were searching for pictures of Teresa, coupled with the fact that there was searches and somebody was watching some fairly violent porn involving young women. All these things together kind of make a concerning situation that somebody in the Dassey household was on that computer and doing these things. So that's another reason why KZ couldn't help but elevate this, because if this stuff was on the Dassey computer, it is certainly something to be concerned about. So we'll move into that document now. Dassey computer forensic examination using new technology reveals images of Miss Halbach and graphic images of violent pornography involving young females being raped and tortured and dead female bodies. New computer forensic technology reveals improved images of Miss Halbach, many images of violent pornography involving young females being raped and tortured, and images of injuries to females, including a decapitated head, a bloodied torso, bloodied head injury, and a mutilated body, on the Dassey computer in Exhibit R. Computer forensic examiner Gary Hunt, as described in his affidavit, attached and incorporated here in his Exhibit Q, has utilized the 2017 technology to examine a forensic image of the computer taken from the Dassey residence. Many of the female images, both alive and deceased, bear an uncanny resemblance to Miss Halbach. The quantity and nature of the pornographic content recovered by Mr. Hunt from the Dassey computer should have alerted investigators to the individual viewing such images as someone at an elevated risk of committing a sexually motivated violent crime. Police procedure expert Mr. Greg McCrary, has submitted a supplemental affidavit, attached and incorporated here as Exhibit S, wherein he describes his opinion that the violent underage and child pornography combined with the images and searches for dead bodies reflects a comorbidity of sexual paraphilia. It is the opinion of Mr. McCrary that Bobby Dassey was becoming obsessively deviant in his viewing of violent pornography in the weeks before Ms. Halbach's October 31st, 2005 appointment at the Avery Salvage property. In light of Bobby Dassey's status as a key witness for the prosecution, it is the opinion of Mr. McCrary that the deviant nature of Bobby Dassey's internet activities should have alerted law enforcement to Bobby Dassey as someone having an elevated risk to perpetrate a sexually motivated violent crime. So you can see right there what was found on that computer. That computer resided in the Dassey house, and that's what was found there. Now, whether it was Bobby or somebody else, I'm not sure at this point. I was looking at somebody else who was analyzing the conversion, the time conversion and stuff like that, and it could be possible that the time conversion wasn't done properly, and some of that time could have been when Bobby was at work. So there may be some discrepancy as to maybe who exactly was accessing this, but the fact is somebody in that household was. Somebody was there on that computer and searching those things. So, I mean, like I said, if it was just one or two of those things, most likely it would be like, it would seem harmless. But the fact that it's all three of those things together, shortly before what happens to Teresa, it's cause for concern. It certainly is. And you hear Mr. McCrary. He tells you that should have been a huge red flag that went up when the investigators saw that computer. That when they found that those things were being searched, it should have been a huge red flag. And we can tell that it wasn't a red flag because we're only really just kind of hearing about it now that KZ's getting in and digging in and pulling this stuff up. So she's offering, like I said, she's offering up Scott and Bobby as suspects because she can make them meet that high threshold of Denny, just like she did with Ryan. Just like it. If she's got the evidence there to make a person, I guarantee it. I bet you if she could find the evidence to make me meet Denny in this Teresa Halbach case, she would do it. I'm just being honest about it. She probably would. Okay? Because that's what she's doing. She's representing Stephen Avery, and that is what she's doing. She is trying to represent him and prove that he didn't do this. Or at least prove that there's cause for a new trial for this to be reevaluated. So, that's her job, and like I said, these people are innocent until proven guilty, everybody. No matter what your opinions are, Scott, Ryan, whoever they are. These people are innocent, or Bobby. It doesn't matter. They're all innocent until proven guilty, and I just want to put that out there as a reminder. So please remember that when you conduct yourself, moving forward here, that they deserve the right to be innocent until proven guilty, because we so strongly believe that Stephen deserves that right. Right? So we have to have conviction. Alright, so that's about it for this video, folks. If you haven't already, please hit subscribe, and we'll see ya.